I think in order to be able to talk about this topic, I need to very quickly contextualize where we are and where, in fact, we have come from. It's no open secret, I mean, it is an open secret, sorry, that Fiji, of course, has had 4 removals of government, if you like, from the normal process. There were 2 coups in 1987, the removal of government in 2000, where you had the then Prime Minister held captive for 56 days in the parliamentary grounds, together with his cabinet members. And of course, we then had the change in government in 5 December 2006, which all led to then subsequently the formulation of this constitution, which we have in place now, which has in fact been acknowledged widely internationally as being one of the better constitutions that Fiji has had, and indeed internationally. We of course had our first elections in Fiji in September of last year, and we today of course have a parliament. There are a number of departures under this new system of government that we do have, and indeed the system of government that has been established under this constitution. And now, one of them being that it is a very, very inclusive approach in terms of the electoral participation. They range from issues such as the reduction of the voting age from 21 to 18. We also now have an electoral system that stops the legal enforcement of ethnic voting. Fiji, unfortunately, had always had this electoral system from the British times and post-independence, where people were in fact categorized during election time, and they had to go and vote along ethnic lines, or political parties therefore subsequently were predicated on ethnicity. So if you have an electoral system that is going to divide everybody in this room based on whether you're black or white, or whether you're African or Caribbean or from the Pacific, you will then, in order for the political parties to be able to gain the maximum number of seats in parliament, they will of course form the basis of the political party based on ethnicity. That obviously has an enormous problem on your ability to function as a nation state post-election period. Because you have policies that are predicated on ethnicity or religion or whatever the case may be, so it does not lead to good national policies being developed. And that is one of the critical issues in a modern nation state that is probably a challenge in many countries, and that's a challenge that we have overcome in Fiji. It leads on to the actual topic, which is building economic confidence through genuine participatory democracy. People will not participate in the public space if they believe, for example, that they come from a minority group. Whether it's based on sexual orientation, whether it's based on religion, gender, ethnicity, if they know that the numbers are small, they will feel that they cannot participate equally in the public space. And it is also a departure from the fact that the parliament is not necessarily the only avenue through which individual rights, or indeed group rights, can be protected. What really is the test is whether the institutions that you create under the Constitution, in fact, allows for the protection of those rights. So therefore, whether you have a strong Bill of Rights, whether you have a strong Human Rights Commission, whether you have proper accountability and transparency, independent commissions that are put in place. And this is precisely what this Constitution does. It guarantees those rights. So we had, for the first time last year, in September, Fijians going along and actually voting along issues pertaining to policies, issues pertaining to development, pertaining to rights. Not basically saying, well, you've got blue eyes and I've got blue eyes, vote for me. So it expands the ability of the people to think beyond what is a very limited way of looking at governance. What this does, ladies and gentlemen, is that it creates a democracy where the governments that are subsequently created are able to treat everybody equally. It leads to private sector confidence, because they know if they are, for example, going to tender for a particular project, the government that's elected, in fact, has been elected on the basis of policies. They're not elected because of their one particular ethnic group or religious group or particular political proclivity based on any form of communal identification. So it creates a huge level of confidence. So your assessment of your tender A company is going to set up a business. When they go and apply for various licenses, they know it's going to be judged on merit, based on merit. And that is very, very critical. And in fact, given I've already done 5 minutes, I'm going to very quickly talk about what that has meant in respect of the participation of many players within the society. And I'd like to comment on what the lady earlier on had asked regarding the involvement of civil society groups and NGOs. You would have seen, those of you who've been reading the papers, we have, for example, going to put in place a national development plan. We had a national development plan before the first coup. So we used to have a 5-year development plan. What we're going to this year is going to put in place a 5-year development plan and a 20-year development plan. So it assists not only governments in terms of knowing what their targets are, where they're going to build a bridge, where their demand is, but it also helps the citizens to empower them. It allows the NGOs and civil societies to contribute to that. It also helps donor organizations, multilateral organizations, to know where the country is headed towards, whether it's the EU, whether it's the IMF, whether it's the World Bank. So in that process, you'll see in the advertisement, everybody's allowed to come and participate. Everybody can contribute towards that. In the same way, for example, in our parliament, we have 6 standing committees. The issue that was raised was about the ILO vis-a-vis the Employment Relations Promulgation. There's a standing committee at the moment that's actually reviewing the new laws that have been put in place, or the bill that has been proposed. People are free to go and contribute towards that. So I think the point is that what we have seen now, because of this level of openness and transparency, we have seen huge levels of investment. As I mentioned, that we have unprecedented investment through the private sector for the past 3 years. Huge levels. We've never had that before. And the only reason why we feel that we have that, and indeed the feedback that we're getting, is because they believe that there's a level playing field. And a level playing field is very critical. At the same time, for example, Fiji never used to have minimum wages. We introduced minimum wages. In fact, now under the minimum wage rate, there's going to be another rise implemented from 1 July of this year. So all of these actually provide that level of confidence where people are able to participate in the public space, whether they're NGOs, civil society, but also in terms of the private sector. And all of that stems from the fact that your fundamental basis, your legal framework, must be inclusive, must allow for the equal treatment of everybody. I would just like to very quickly read to you the equality provisions in the Constitution, Section 26. It says you cannot be unfairly discriminated against, directly or indirectly, on the basis of a person's actual or supposed personal characteristics or circumstances, including race, culture, ethnic or social origin, color, place of origin, sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, birth, primary language, economic or social or health status, disability, age, religion, conscience, marital status, or pregnancy. It is very, very wide. In fact, many countries, probably in Europe, don't even have this, to be frank. But the point is, again, talking about freedom of the press. There is freedom of the press. No journalist in Fiji has been ever fined under the media decree. No journalist, in fact, has even been charged under the media decree. We obviously have a history. Many of the countries have the historicity in terms of how they've developed. The justification of many of the coups we've had in Fiji is primarily based on communalism. So we also have had provisions since the colonial days in terms of ensuring that you cannot have third parties fanning those flames. So this is the historical context from which we are coming from. But I think the test obviously is that when you have a supreme law that can actually be contested, any issues, any law can be contested before the courts in Fiji. And so the judiciary is very, very critical. Recently, the Attorney General's chambers had taken a matter to the courts in terms of testing the eligibility of a member of parliament to sit as a member of parliament. The ruling went against the Attorney General. We moved along. That's the ruling of the court. It's a court of disputed returns. That's how you develop the jurisprudence. And I think that is very, very critical in terms of ensuring that you build up investor confidence. And we've done, for example, a number of issues like beefing up the judiciary. We are now with the development fund that we signed the agreement yesterday with the European Union. There's going to be a funding towards the provision of access to justice through the Legal Aid Commission. So many of these issues, what we are saying is, active participatory democracy actually leads to investor confidence, because in the marketplace you have many minds that are meeting, and we are able to then, through the supreme law, be able to navigate a chart, a way forward that's going to be beneficial for the country. Thank you.